Hey, we are here today, and we're here with the amazing, great, my friend Jake Sussman from Superpower Mentors. Hey, Jake, how the heck are you doing?
What's up, Harv? I'm doing wonderful. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, man. So, it's been a while that we've known each other, and I always love checking in with you, and I want to hear about everything going on with Superpower Mentors, and I don't even know where to begin. Everybody knows how we met and all these things, but when we made that film with you, when we made The Forgotten Child, uh, that was how long ago did we make Forgotten Child?
We started filming that in 2019. So that was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
But the poem was written though in 2017. So it's been a long time in the making. This was the beginning of the launch of Superpower Mentors and just what I became to be. And I am forever grateful for you, Harvey, for seeing that vision as well and giving a platform for that voice to be heard. Because that's really what it's all about here, right? It's about having a voice, you know? And the idea around superpower and the forgotten child, essentially, the poem was written on about someone, which was my story, but it's really everyone's story, who was misunderstood for who they are and how they learn. Having a learning disability, it's a hidden thing. You don't know you have it. You can't see it with the naked eye, but it's a real thing. It affects 1 in 5 people, and it's something that I really, really felt a need to bring out because a lot of people don't really talk about it. And what led from the launch of The Forgotten Child was the birth of the Superpower Mentors, where imagine instead of just someone trying to fix you, because growing up with a learning disability, constantly, we feel like we're broken or there's something wrong with us. We're always comparing ourselves. And imagine having a role model in your corner that not only has a similar learning challenge, but who also has the same interests. So now you have someone that you can look at and be like, whoa, if Jake has gone through this, I can do this. And we match based on all different types of criterias, but it's changed the game with how we reach kids with learning disabilities.
So when you say we match, well, a couple different things. First of all, you use the word disability. I use difference, and
Neurodiversity. Yeah.
neurodiversity is a good common place for the tribes to come together because you become disabled after a certain time in certain learning worlds if they haven't taught you that. So you have a bunch of lifeguards, superheroes that come in and work with families. So just let's roll back into Superpower Mentors, how it got started, what was your dreams, your hopes. Um, you started matching students.
Yeah.
Parents find you.
Yeah.
They get students, and then you find mentors that match with them. So let's go back to that. A basic
Sure,
building block.
yeah. And I'll go into the idea of, what's the foundation of Superpower Mentors. And we are built on the idea that we want to help students learn the foundations to independence, which helps them learn how to communicate. Okay, that's what this is all about. It's helping kids find that confidence, not just through a professional, but through someone that's been there. So the reason why I'm emphasizing on matching is because the match is everything, Harvey. Growing up, in school, having a learning difference, I personally was constantly comparing myself. A little bit of background about, my story is that, when I was in 6th grade, I was 4 grade levels behind in reading, forced to read out loud in class. How can you teach anyone how to read when the student's entire world is filled with fear, anxiety, and stress and constantly comparing themselves? And as the oldest in my family, I didn't really have someone to look up to beyond just my parents that I can say, wow, like I can do this thing. The path was always so foggy. And that's why, if you've gone through adversity, there's kids going through the same exact thing right now. As we're speaking, there's a kid right now that's struggling in school because of their dyslexia or ADHD. So that's why for our mentors, the biggest piece of credibility is not in the textbook. It's not in what they've learned, Harv. It's actually in their story, what they've gone through. And that's why we've been able to be so successful in creating these matches, is because we're looking beyond than just what they know. It's actually what they have and what they like. And taking a strengths-based approach has allowed us to impact kids faster than what most of our families have said than any professional they've ever worked with. So today we've done almost 6,000 sessions over the past 3.5 years with kids all over the world, and we've seen unbelievable results.
Well, this is kind of like it's kind of like that. It's a perfect storm of all of these elements coming together. Hold with me, bear with me on this one. You know, like big brothers and big sisters.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like an organization like that, but it's kind of like the A team. You guys are like the A team. Like, where do you find these guys? But you can work all over the world, so you find these people. But then it's also the perfect storm of, and you and I know, we talked about this all the time. Educators are great people. They went into it because they have compassion. They want to help out kids, but they didn't realize, because elder teachers, or they didn't learn in the university, maybe it's not such a good idea to have the kid who's 4 grade levels behind reading out loud. Maybe that's not going to help.
That's what I'm that's what I'm saying. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, in our society, we are so focused on what we see versus what happens underneath. Okay? And we're always constantly obsessed with fixing the problem and trying to have the answer, when in reality, these kids just need someone that can speak their language. Right? Once they can talk to someone that speaks their language, that can say, hey, I totally get hyperfixating on those things because I do that too. That will give that clarity to the student to then realize that it's not unique to just them. And otherwise, helping them understand that within their strengths, because we all have them, we all have interests. I don't care if it's on video games or building Legos, right? We all have strengths. So we are going to go on a mission to identify and pull out what those strengths are, to use that as momentum to then help the student tackle their challenges.
But I think it being fair to the educator
Yeah.
has a mission that I have to get done by this month, by this week. I have to get this done, and I have 20 kids I got to get across the line, and that's what I have to kind of do. Now, back in the day, just bear with me on this. Back in the day, when Pete Wright from Wright's Law was when Pete was a kid, he was known as uneducable. And he met the great Diana Hadberry King, who was his teacher. So you guys now you have these kids who are unreachable. We can't reach these kids, and that's what people have written on progress reports or report cards, if they still have those things. Whatever
Yeah.
they're telling parents. So that's when all of a sudden you got the parents that got their hands full, you got the educators that got their hands full, you got the students, and you guys come in and you reach the unreachable star.
Right. And let me just touch upon that for a second, because when it comes to having a mentor, this person becomes their mentee's bridge. Okay. So not just for the student, but also for the parent and for the teachers. Now, for parents, now we work with parents all the time on this, and this is what a lot of our parents love in our program, is that we provide insight to the parents that if we learn, look, parents watching, we all know there's typically there's that fight before dinner, right? And if we learn that there's a way to get around that fight before dinner, or why that keeps happening, that can help you as a parent better reach your child, you deserve to know. And how do we know that? Is because the match is so well done. The mentor most likely has gone through something very similar, that they can speak from their experience. Right. And also, as we build the relationship with the mentee, we're able to really give that feedback beyond just the textbook, right? We're able to say, hey, here's why it seems like your child's ignoring you. They're actually not. They're just hyper fixating on their video game. So there's strategies on how we can break that hyper focus so that we can minimize any levels of stress in those moments. And these parents absolutely love it. So that's the parent side. On the other front, you have the teacher, which, by the way, we love our teachers. right? Our teachers they are the building block to our society. You know what I mean? And the problem, unfortunately, is that they're in such a large classroom, it's hard. You have at least 5 students in every class that is a teacher has a hard time reaching. So imagine now we can go to this mentee's teacher and say, "Hello, Mrs. Smith," right? For Johnny, here's something that we've learned that can help ignite his focus, right? We're working on helping him raise his hand more in class. And this is what we're doing. So now we're creating this trifecta of communication that now everyone's talking, because it doesn't just happen at school. It also happens in the home, and it also happens personally with the mentee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I'm really getting this too because the reason, because I'm looking at the kid who's just playing video games and I'm yelling at the kid, but because you've matched the person, they're saying, no, I was just hyper focused on. So one of your mentors was not too long ago, was that kid. So he's saying,
Correct.
I'm just hyper focused on the game. I'm just like really focusing there. So that's a whole new way of looking at it, and you're seeing it from the kid's perspective. So sorry for me being Captain Obvious, but your mentor is advocating for where the student is coming from.
Correct. And while we're advocating on behalf of the student, we are teaching the student how to advocate, right? But you can't advocate without understanding how you learn. So if we can start by creating an awareness that, okay, this is why I hyper focus, right? A video game is stimulating, right? If I'm playing Fortnite, Minecraft, whatever those games are, that stimulates my hyper focus. So now I'm locked in. So if mom or dad yells 5 minutes, right? And I say, I don't register what 5 minutes is if I'm already hyper focused. So if we tell the parent, you go into the room, and for our parents, this is something that a really great piece of advice in these moments, because video games fighting happens all the time, is that if we walk in to that room and if you put your hand on their leg or on their back, which is stimulating, which breaks the hyper focus, we say 5 more minutes. And then I also recommend getting a time timer. So now the student can visualize what 5 minutes looks like. So now they can be independent in turning those games off, right? I am not saying it works 100% of the time, but we've found a lot of success in some of these little tweaks that we can make that can make all the difference.
Yeah, I see that. I was going to say, because so now you're advocating, you're teaching me to advocate for myself, and I'm beginning to. I look at the clock and I say, okay, 5 minutes, I got it. Oh, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, four. Okay, I better go down there, and I don't have to have a fight with the parents. So
Right.
that's pretty darn good. How do people find you anyhow?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they can check out our website, which is superpowermentors.com. You can follow us on Facebook, which is Superpower Mentors. You can also follow me personally on Jake Sussman Live on Facebook. So that's really the big areas where our families are finding us. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We also work with schools and organizations. So, it just kind of depends on what the need is.
Okay, perfect. So things are different from when I was a kid, but I'm older than you by a couple dogs' ages here. So this whole neurodiversity. I mean, they didn't know what neurodiversity was when I was in school. Did they? When you were in? Well, you went
No.
to. So tell me about this whole thing on neurodiversity, because again, our educators are might not have picked up this stuff in the university,
Yeah.
and it's all over the internet. People can begin to do it, but so as a person who has dealt with it and deals with it every day, uh, talk to us about this the whole new perspectives on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why neurodiversity, the term neurodiversity is being heavily adopted now is, and this is something that at Superpower Mentors and me personally that I strongly believe in, is there's the label, you take dyslexia, right? You have the actual thing, right? Which is dyslexia, right? However, that in and of itself is not necessarily a disability, right? It's all a matter of that perspective. So if we look at neurodiversity, where it's the concept that no mind is the same. It doesn't matter what your label is. no mind is the same. That's recognizing that, okay, well, if no mind is the same, I just learn in this unique way. It's not ignoring dyslexia or the label, right? But it's embracing it, but not letting it define the individual. And that kind of leads into this whole topic around stereotype threats, which is this idea where people identify with stereotypes that are associated with certain labels. So you take dyslexia. What's a stereotype with dyslexia? I can't read, so therefore I won't read, right? What's a stereotype with ADHD? Can't focus, so therefore I won't focus, right? People actually identify with those labels, and that is a piece that actually holds them back even more, right? So if we can remove that whole defining piece, I'm not saying ignoring it, right? Because we have to embrace what we have. But that's like the broader scope of what neurodiversity is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, years ago when we made a little film called Dyslexia the Movie, my producer on the West Coast said, as he looked at everything that was broken down, all my neuro psychs and everything, my testing, and said, you know, this is like an owner's manual for you. He goes, the rest of us, you know, you guys are lucky to have an owner's manual. The rest of us are out here, you know, units without an owner's manual. So
It's crazy. Yeah.
what happens is once you begin to understand this, you can see the strengths and the weaknesses which every human being has. I mean, I think in the 1950s we were all expected to be cookie cutters of each other, and now we see the beauty of all of these human beings. Uh,
But
all,
you know something interesting though, Harv, is that that's still kind of happening now also, right? Like it's changing, it's starting to have momentum, right? We're seeing the dismantles of the teachers' college, right? And things are different. Orton Gillingham and Wilson is being heavily adopted now, but you know, students are still feeling that isolation that, when we hear the stories of back in the day, right? It's identical. You know what I mean? So we're talking about trying to bring this mass change uh, to just the masses. So I hear it.
mass change to the masses. Well, it is making it is changing the way people perceive things, and I think the big thing is we're at a time where a big shift is happening in how people were expected to learn and how we know the neuroscience of how it is. So here's what I want to do. This is we're going to take a break right now, and this has been a great conversation. We're talking about the stereotypes of dyslexia and how it affects people and just the labels. But we're going to come back. There's a little bit more controversy on this, and I'd like to be able to talk to you about it next week for part 2 of Jake Sussman and the Superpower Mentors. Cool?
Awesome.
Jake,
See y'all next week.
thank you for your time now. See you next week. Bingo.